Have you ever just stopped and thought about how weird our relationship with money is? I mean, we all know what we're supposed to do, right? Save more, spend less, invest for the future. But then real life happens. Our emotions, fear, greed, that desire for something new, they just take the wheel. And suddenly we're making decisions that we know are not in our own best interest. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the psychology behind all this. We're going to figure out why we do the things we do with money, and more importantly, how we can start to think differently. All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to kick things off by looking at two totally different ways of thinking about money. Then we'll get into the emotional trap that keeps so many people stuck. After that, we'll break down the single most important secret of the wealthy, and then show you how to start writing your own financial story. From there, we'll talk about how to invest like a pro, without letting your emotions run the show. And finally, we'll tie it all together to map out your path to financial freedom. So, the whole foundation of this idea comes from a really powerful story about two father figures. Now, one of them was brilliant, highly educated, but he struggled with money his entire life. The other one, he was a school dropout who ended up becoming a millionaire. And it all came down to their completely different beliefs about money, which, as you can imagine, led them down two very, very different paths. And this, right here, this slide just cuts right to the heart of it. It's the core conflict in a single sentence from each of them. One dad believed that money was this corrupting force, something you should almost be afraid of. But the other dad, he saw the lack of money as the real problem, the thing that causes stress, struggle, and lost opportunities. And that one fundamental difference in their worldview ended up shaping every single financial choice they ever made. Now, the poor dad mindset, this is probably going to sound familiar. It's the path most of us are taught to follow. You know the script. Get a good education so you can get a safe, secure job with great benefits. The deal seems pretty straightforward. You give your loyalty and hard work to a company, and in return, you feel like you're entitled to security, right? The whole philosophy is built on depending on someone else, an employer, and avoiding financial risk like the plague. The rich dad mindset, on the other hand, flips that completely on its head. This is the investor's mindset. Instead of thinking about how to work harder for money, the entire focus shifts to learning how to make your money work harder for you. It's not about chasing a bigger paycheck. It's about buying or building things that generate their own income. For him, money wasn't the ultimate prize. It was just a tool, a concept. He saw it as this sort of illusion that only works because we all agree it does. The key, he believed, was to learn the rules of the game so you could win, not just be a player in it. So if that employee mindset is what we're all taught, why does it so often lead to financial stress? Well, the answer lies in two incredibly powerful emotions that work together to create this vicious cycle, this trap that's famously known as the rat race. This diagram just lays out the trap perfectly. It all starts with fear. You know, that pit in your stomach fear of not having enough money to pay the bills? That fear is what gets you up in the morning and pushes you to go to work. Then you get paid, and for a little while, the fear goes away. But then another emotion kicks in, desire. You see a new phone, a dream vacation, a nicer car, so you spend the money. And just like that, you're back where you started, and the fear of being broke comes rushing back, sometimes even stronger. It's this endless loop of working and spending, and it's driven entirely by emotion, not logic. And this is just the perfect analogy for it, isn't it? The paycheck is the carrot. It's this illusion of a reward that's always just out of reach, keeping you pulling that cart forward. The crazy part is, the owner of the cart gets where he wants to go. But the donkey? The donkey is just endlessly chasing something it can never quite catch, never realizing it's in a trap. And as we get older, the carrots just get bigger and more expensive, but the game stays exactly the same. Fear is at your back, and desire is calling to you from the front. And let's be real, this desire isn't just about buying nice things. In our world today, it usually shows up as FOMO, the fear of missing out. You see your friends or people online getting rich from some hot new stock or crypto coin, and you get this intense fear of being left behind. That feeling pushes you to jump in, often with no real understanding of what you're doing. And that feeling, that anxiety that you're missing out on what everyone else has, that's basically the modern definition of greed. And it is a really powerful and often really destructive motivator. So how in the world do you escape this trap? The very first step is to learn the one simple yet absolutely profound secret that wealthy people understand. It's a distinction so fundamental it will literally change the way you see every single dollar. I'm talking about the difference between an asset and a liability. It is truly that simple. An asset is anything that generates income and puts cash into your pocket, whether you work for it or not. The only thing that matters here is the direction of the cash flow. If money is flowing to you because you own something, like a rental property bringing in rent each month or a stock paying dividends, then it's an asset, period. And a liability, you guessed it, is the exact opposite. It's anything that constantly takes money out of your pocket. Again, just follow the cash. If you have to keep paying money to own something, it's a liability. Think car payments, credit card debt, student loans, all liabilities. Okay, so this brings us to the big one, the classic question that challenges everything we're taught about money. Is your house an asset? Now, almost everyone says yes, right? Your banker will even tell you to list it as an asset on a loan application. But let's use our new cash flow definition. What's the reality? Every single month, you pay a mortgage, property taxes, insurance, repairs. Money is flowing out of your pocket. So, by this strict definition, the house you live in is actually your biggest liability, not your biggest asset. Now, it could become an asset if you rented out the basement and that income covered all your expenses and put extra cash in your pocket, then it would be an asset. You see, it's not about the thing itself. It's all about the cash flow. Let's actually look at how this plays out. This chart shows the cash flow pattern of a wealthy person. You can see they focus all their time and energy over here on the balance sheet, specifically on building up their asset column. They buy things like real estate, stocks, bonds, businesses, and those assets then generate income, which flows over to their income statement. And what do they do with that income? They use it to buy more assets. It's this beautiful, self-sustaining cycle. Meanwhile, most people are stuck over here, just focused on the top line of their income statement, their salary, which then just flows right back out to pay for their liabilities and expenses. So this is the whole game. We have to shift our focus from just earning a higher income to actually building an asset column. But how do you do that? How do you make this real in your own life? It's not about some vague goal. It's about getting serious and creating your own personal financial policy, a set of rules for your money, so you can start rewriting your story. So where do we even begin? How do you take these big ideas and turn them into real-world action? Well, it starts with you deciding to become the chief financial officer of your own life. And just like any good CFO, your very first job is to know your numbers, inside and out, because your numbers tell the true story of what's working and what's not. Your starting point is a personal financial checkup, and it all comes down to tracking 7 key numbers. Think of these like your financial vital signs when you go to the doctor. These numbers don't have an opinion, they don't lie, they just give you a totally honest, unfiltered look at your financial health right now. Okay, here they are. Number 1 is your income, and you have to separate what you earn from your job versus what comes in from assets. That's passive income. Number 2, your expenses. 3 is the difference between them, your monthly surplus or your deficit. 4 and 5, the total value of your assets and your liabilities. Number 6 is your net worth. That's just assets minus liabilities. And finally, number 7 is your credit score, which is basically a report card on your financial habits. The goal isn't just to look at these once, it's to create a plan, a policy to actively make these numbers better every single month. Now, this is where those two mindsets we talked about really split. The poor dad path, the act your wage path, it's all about playing defense. The advice is always cut your expenses, clip coupons, maybe get a second job to make ends meet. The goal is basically to live a smaller life, one that fits inside your paycheck. The rich dad path, though, is all about playing offense. It's about expanding your means. And the number one step is to increase your financial education. Learn about investing, markets, accounting, so you can spot the opportunities other people just don't see. Then it's about learning to use things like credit strategically as a tool to acquire an asset that generates even more income. This is about playing to win, not just playing not to lose. All right, so building that asset column is the goal, and that almost always means you're going to have to invest. And this is where the psychological battle gets really, really intense, because the single biggest hurdle for almost every investor isn't picking the right stock or property. It's learning how to manage their own fear and greed so they can make logical, smart decisions. This quote just nails it. The market is not always this rational, logical place. It's a giant arena for human psychology. When fear takes over the crowd, people panic, and they sell everything at the bottom. And when greed, or FOMO, takes over, people get euphoric and pile in at the top. This emotional roller coaster is what creates all the volatility. And for an investor who can stay calm and detached, that emotional chaos isn't a risk. It's the biggest opportunity you could ask for. You can buy when everyone else is terrified and sell when they're getting greedy. So how do you manage that risk in such an emotional environment?
Let's use the Titanic analogy. Think of any investment you make as getting on a big ship. Now, you can't control whether the ship hits an iceberg. That's just market risk, it's out of your hands. But what you can control 100% is whether you get on a ship that has lifeboats in the first place. So what's a lifeboat in investing? It's your exit strategy, and you have to have it planned before you put a single dollar in. It could be a stop-loss order that automatically sells the stock if it drops by 10%. It could be a price target where you decide to take profits. The story of the Titanic is only a tragedy because there was no way out. The number one rule of managing risk is to always, always know how you're getting off the ship before you ever get on.
We have covered a ton of ground here, from the mindsets we grow up with to the emotional traps that catch us, all the way to the practical steps for changing our financial lives. But really, it all comes down to one simple idea. Financial freedom is not something that happens by accident. It's a choice. And this quote just brilliantly sums up the entire lesson. Most people are trained to work hard with their hands or at a desk, but they're never trained to see the financial opportunities that are all around them every single day. They're looking for a better job, a bigger salary, but the real opportunities, the kind that build serious wealth, they aren't things you can just see with your eyes. They're patterns and possibilities you can only perceive once you've trained your mind through financial education. It's about seeing the whole playing field, not just the carrot dangling in front of you. At the end of the day, if someone were to look at your personal financial statement right now, your income, expenses, assets, and liabilities, it would tell a story. It's a story about your habits, your knowledge, and your priorities. It shows exactly where your money comes from and where it goes. The real question is, are you happy with the story it's telling? Because if you're not, you have to remember that you are the author. By changing your mindset, by boosting your financial education, and by relentlessly focusing on building that asset column, you have all the power you need to write a brand new story.